Welcome back to Epigenetics Unleashed. Today I'm going to go over episode 7, which is about transforming mindset. So we're going to discover how using this epigenetic lens, we can understand our mindset and behaviors a little bit better. And the goal of this is to inspire you to think about using this lens moving forward. The personal growth industry is such a huge industry. It's a booming industry. It does fantastic things for so many people, but it also puts people into these areas and treats them the same, and everyone needs to aspire for discipline and growth and all these hard things which aren't necessarily aligned with every single person, because when we understand this epigenetic lens, we have different hormonal drivers, and by understanding that, we can understand what works for other people and why. This means we can reduce our guilt and our frustration around listening to someone successful and seeing it being like, oh my God, I'm just not like them, I'm never gonna be like them, to, okay, well, they got success, that's how they got them. How can I maybe find a way that's more suited to my epigenetics, my behaviors, my lifestyle, and that can still move in a way that I deem successful? Because so many people get to success and they're not happy because it doesn't align with who they are. So that's my goal today, and hopefully I can help you take that next step to really think about this as a way to move forward. In this first part, just to remind you guys, so epigenetics is basically the study of how the environment influences your genes, whether that's, external environment, internal environment, things you're putting into your body, the people you hang around, the stress levels that you have, all those sorts of things influence the way that your genes respond to the environment, and that creates you as you are, which was known as your phenotype, and we also call them health types in PH 360, the system we use to understand all these incredible things about yourself. Now, when we look at the mindset, so two of the defining factors when people talk about mindset is usually in the terms of a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. With the growth mindset, we're looking at people who are constant learners, they're constant seekers. People will think they are always growth minded, but there will be areas in your life where you aren't. And it's important to establish where you are growth minded and where you aren't, and understand where you need to put some effort in to become more growth based. The other is the fixed mindset. So the fixed mindset is mainly when you get older, not mainly when you get older, sorry, like when you hear older people typically say like, oh, I'm too old, I can't do this. Or I had this injury, I can't do this. And there's so many other ways to say it. They're just the two that could come to mind because of the experiences that I've seen in my life and working with older people a lot of the time. So really interesting way to look at the world. Am I most growth mindseted? Are these problems things that I'm going to learn and overcome through, diving into and being curious? Or is it just something that's going to be and I'm just going to stay the way I am? If you're fixed mindseted, probably turn off this podcast now because it won't suit you, because we're all about exploring the curiosity and diving in deep to make sure that we can understand things and look at things with a different perspective so that we can act differently on them. When it comes to the health type lens, so I'll pop it up here, but basically we have those 6 health types. The first one is an activator, so typically steroidal hormones like testosterone. Then you have the connector, someone who loves to connect with people. Their hormonal driver is oxytocin. Look at the guardian, that is more prolactin. That's the more support, care, and nurture type person. Then we have the diplomat. For the diplomat, it's more about thinking, really serotonin. Lifestyle, place, pleasure is really important to them. We then have the sensor, who really dials in to think about like analytics and just making sure that, they're typically those frailish people who really need that safety and to feel safe and physically safe. That's part of their genetic makeup. Then you have crusaders, who sit between the sensor and the activator. Typically, they're the ones that are more dopamine driven, so they're goal orientated. They're constantly trying to push forward. They put up with pain a little bit more. And typically what we'll see, most of the growth based industry is these crusader activated people, the people who are charging forward using dopamine to create success, or the activators that talk out loud and share their success continuously. Whereas the other side of the circle, which we'll explore, are the ones that, may need a slightly different approach to be more successful in these things. Now, when we think about habits are the keys that move us forward, because the habits are the behaviors that essentially allow us to become what we need to become to achieve the things that we want. So when we think of a behavior, say getting up and going to the gym, the one time isn't going to make a difference. The 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, it's not really going to hardwire that into you. We like to think about a 33-week process in order to really connect the dots and implement and integrate. We talk about when you think about the ski, it's cold now. So when you're coming down the slopes, people have these carves into the ice, and they are going to be so much easier to stick to on your run versus the flat, slippery surface. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create these neural connections and work on neural plasticity to help your brain understand what it needs to do to get where it needs to go. For this next part, we're going to understand environmental factors like how diet, stress, and lifestyle choices can actually impact your gene expression and relate to how that also improves your mental health. So typically when someone's in a lower mental health, they're not really doing too well. They're not really moving towards their goals or expressing their best self. So we want to understand what are the keys to move us towards feeling our absolute best, and then how we can use that to foster our growth mindset. I'll put a little diagram up here, but there's kind of three ways we look at it. So one is physical health. Physical health involves the right nutrition, as in for your health type, fitness for your health type, sleep, physical environment for you personally as well. Then what we want to do is look at psychosocial health. So when it comes to psychosocial health, we're looking at how you can use your natural strengths based on your hormones and the things that you're going to be good at, and spending time with people who align with your needs and that are really going to energize you. So that's part 2, psychosocial health. And 3, mental, emotional, and environmental. So when you can get to a point where you understand and accept yourself, when you're engaging with other people and moving towards your purpose, you are going to feel so much better. So when we look at mental health on a spectrum, how can we implement these things, and how do we feel when we implement the things that are right for you based on your epigenetics, your genetics, and your health type? And we can make sure that we're going to move that needle further towards the greater mental health capacity, and you're going to feel a lot better. So by doing these 3 things, by acing your physical health, you're going to feel biologically safe. You're going to have a calm system. Your body's going to respond well to what you're doing. By leveraging your natural strengths and being around people who light you up, you're going to have thriving, you're going to thrive, and you're going to feel fulfilled because everything's going to be more enjoyable. And then when we look at the mental, emotional, environmental, what you're going to notice is when you're more accepting of yourself, you're going to be more accepting of other people. You're going to have inner peace, and you're going to have a different perspective to a lot of people who are really wound up. So that's why it's important to really understand how can we align our life, our lifestyle to what our body needs in order to get the best outcomes. And I think this is something in mental health that we are missing greatly. And by implementing these processes, by living aligned to whatever health type you are, you're going to see great improvements. Now, number 4, what we're going to look at is epigenetic principles to cultivate positive habits. So mindfulness and meditation, consistent healthy routines, physical activity, and its impact on brain health. So it turns out that, as I said, we're all unique, we're all different. Cognitive behavioral therapy is known as one of the world's leading behavior change theories. And what they've learned from studies is actually only 30 to 40% effective. So when we look at that stat, there's still 70 to 60 people, 60% of people who aren't quite getting the results they need from that. And that's because we are unique. The average person isn't average. And I want you to understand that, because that's where this health lens becomes so useful, because we can subcategorize people based on behavioral trends by their dominant hormone drivers, and then be able to facilitate change in a way that suits their personality down to their genetics. So I'll give you a couple of examples of this happening. So for one, I want to talk about Lupe. Lupe was an amazing client. She went through the program and she loves caring for people. And this was evident when she was talking about work a lot. When she could grow to understand, so she was a guardian and hers is about supporting and working with teams, she was like, oh my God, I've learned what I need to make myself the best. I'm filling up my cup. Now I'm sitting here with more patience. I'm dealing with my workmates more effectively. I'm actually, because she was a manager, she was actually able to navigate their personalities, understanding that, looking at some, she wouldn't be 100% correct all the time, but you start to pick up these patterns of behaviors because you get to wear this new lens. And she found she was enjoying work so much more. So she started thriving. She was less stressed around the end of the month, which is usually crazy for her. So by being able to do those things, she wasn't falling off track with her training either, which is really important, because people who tend to put themselves last because they think they're caring for everyone is the most important thing, the training is going to fall off because it doesn't feel like it's serving a purpose for anyone else. But because we had these good environments constantly improving, we were able to see great results across every area of her health. She even inspired her partner to join, who's now down 10 kilos. She inspired her friend to join, who's down about 5 kilos, but some of the mental understanding and the awareness, and she was almost crying on the phone the other day. It was really nice. She's just saying how much we'd changed her life using these processes, because now she understands herself on a deeper level. We then had Katie, for instance. She was the same, guardian at work, understanding people, feeling less frustrated by family members, and that being able to create that inner peace. So she understood where she was, and having a wider perspective of people, then she was able to accommodate to people a lot easier, which just made her feel more peaceful at work. We then have Kat, who was also another guardian. So we tend to get a lot of guardians and diplomats through the program. With Kat in mind, she kept putting work first. Same again. She's like, that was her family, or even she was doing things for her outside family. And we had to have a hard conversation. We're like, Kat, like, you know, you just hurt your knee. You're doing this type of exercise that doesn't suit your body. We changed her to strength training. She started feeling empowered. Her joints were starting to feel stronger. Then she was starting to not avoid the gym as much because she was actually enjoying the sessions. So we suited the workouts to her biology. And then as she grew and understand that she was enjoying her training, that she was eating better, that she was feeling better, she was so much more helpful around work and, you know, taking people on walks at lunchtime. And she just found that this was just a positive, inspirational spiral. And now she's so much more open-minded. She's willing to learn about things that she never thought about before. And she's actually ended up on a couple of TV ads, which is pretty cool. So it's made her feel more confident in exploring certain things. Then it comes to Elise. So Elise is my sister. We've been working together for 5 years now, probably longer, and putting up with each other for about 30. So interesting thing with us, we're trying to constantly grow and develop our Think Fit business, our gym in Western Sydney, and we were meeting at a specific time in the day. And what we noticed by her meeting at that time of day, she was just a bit, not useless, but like just couldn't get her head to think right. And once we did the epigenetics, we understood like, hey, this is my peak time for this, but Elise's time wasn't quite lined up. She needed to move her body or something else. When we're able to change that to suit her body clocks and her genius clocks and what she's good at, then we're actually both able to thrive in that environment. So by mixing and matching these, it's actually made a huge difference in the impact that we get to have together because we're operating at our best. So what I'd love for you to do is think about, how can I use this epigenetic lens, or how can I find out more? How can I think like, wow, I do some things and they just naturally feel good, but then other times when I'm doing certain things, I don't feel that way. It's because we have these clocks, we have these things in our system that support the way we grow and learn. So when we look at trying to grow and develop, how can we assist ourselves and how can we create the right behaviors and the right environments to support the things we want to learn about and want to grow and develop in, and make sure we're actually aligned to them physically and mentally. Great way to learn a bit more about these is episode 2. I have a learn more about the health types, so we'll deep dive into those. Episode 3 is on mental health, so you can dive into that one and understand a little bit more about the spectrum and how each individual health type reacts when their mental health is rather low. But just really want to emphasize the idea, like, we are unique, and when you can understand what is right for you and you can have a better mental health because of that, and when you're doing things that are in line with your body, so for the activators, for instance, just that high energy, that output, and then that diplomat maybe, you know, is the complete opposite. You need to think a lot more. You need to build these understandings of, you know, what could happen, because you're really good at thinking about what can go wrong versus taking action, which is the activator. So when we're listening to this growth mindset based stuff, like, how can we find the people that resonate with us, not because they like are the opposite of what we are, it is good and inspiring, but how can we find people who are similar to us that are achieving just as good, using the same methods that are going to align with your body? If you have any more questions, reach out to me on socials. I'd love to have a chat. If you want to, you know, find out more, watch some of the other YouTube episodes, and if you want to get started, touch base with me, and I'd love to introduce you to this incredible world that's changing so many people's lives, and I will speak to you soon.